One of my favorite novels to have come out in the past 10 years has to be Ghana Must Go by Taiye Selasi. It is a beautifully written, lyrical book that seems to blur the lines between narrative poetry and narrative prose. Selasi has achieved something truly remarkable. However, in my interactions with other readers of the book, the majority of them have all complained about how difficult it is to engage with this novel. I actually got my first copy from a friend who had tried to start the book 3 or 4 times, but 2 or 3 chapters in, she didn't know what was happening, so she gave up and passed it on to me. I have come across many readers with similar sentiments. Many of them also give up trying to read it. In fact, when I was at the Abantu Book Festival in December last year, I found myself waiting for one of the events to begin on Saturday morning. At another table not too far away, a group of women were meeting for their monthly book club to discuss Sisonke Msimang's Always Another Country. It looked like they were waiting for other people to arrive because they were all having their own conversations. I overheard one of them lament how unhappy she had been with the previous month's selection. I later found out that last month's book was Selasi's Ghana Must Go. My intention in this video essay is to try and place this book that I love in a long tradition of epic poetry in order to try and make it more accessible to other readers so that they too can appreciate the incredible beauty of its form. Ghana Must Go is the saga that tells the story of the Sai family. It takes place over a period of 4 days, but spans across continents and over many decades. Kweku Sai is the family patriarch. Born in Ghana, he receives a scholarship to study medicine in the United States, where he meets his wife Fola, a Nigerian who also immigrates to America after being raised in Ghana following the deaths of her parents. After they get married, Fola gives up her dream of going to law school, and she and Kweku have 4 children. The eldest, Olu, twins Taiye and Kehinde, and the youngest baby Sadie. After Kweku unfairly loses his job, he abandons the family, moves back to Ghana, and leaves Fola to raise the children by herself. Fola feels she is unable to give all of her children the very best, so she sends the twins to live with her half-brother in Nigeria, while she remains in America with Olu and Sadie. Olu follows in his father's footsteps and becomes a surgeon. Taiye resents her mother for sending her and her brother to Nigeria, and she embarks on a path of self-destruction. To help himself deal with the trauma he and Taiye experienced in Nigeria, Kehinde retreats into his art and becomes world famous as a result. And Sadie struggles to figure out her place in the world and her family. The book opens many years after these events, with Kweku having a heart attack and the rest of the family coming together for the first time in many years. An epic poem can be defined as a long narrative poem. Long in this context can be anything from 200 pages to 4 or 5 different volumes, each over 300 pages long. Epic poems are usually about heroic deeds or events that are significant to a particular culture. They tend to have a mythical tone, as most of them are set in a time or an age that has long passed. The thing that these poems all have in common is their use of the conventions of poetry to heighten emotions. They make extensive use of figures of speech like alliterations, rhythm, rhyme, personifications, metaphors, and many others. Many cultures around the world have been practicing epic poetry for generations. Epic poems find their origin in the oral literatures that were practiced around the world before writing reduced the spoken word to written symbols. Today, these epic poems fill books over 300 or 400 pages long. But in the past, they would be recited from memory by skilled performers who dedicated themselves to the preservation of their cultural heritage and history. Some of the more well-known traditional epic poems include the Epic of Gilgamesh from ancient Sumeria, the Legend of Liongo from East Africa, the Mahabharata from India, the Odyssey from ancient Greece, and the Mandinka Epic of Sunjata from West Africa. In contemporary times, writers around the world have also taken to writing their own epic poems about historical events or issues of the day. In 1979, Manzisi Kunene, who would later become South Africa's first poet laureate, translated his epic Zulu poem Unodumehlezi Kamenzi into English as Emperor Shaka the Great because he was unable to find a publisher for the original Zulu version. This would later be published in 2017 10 years after his death. Kunene's poem is divided into 17 books that tell the story of the growth of the Zulu nation under King Shaka. It starts with a prophecy that foretells his birth, tells of his military reforms, his love for his mother, his conquest of many nations around Zululand, and his ultimate betrayal by his brothers. Kunene draws his telling of Shaka's story from the oral history he grew up on. However, Mbongeni Malaba makes the argument that Kunene's representation of Shaka is one-sided and that he avoids dealing with the negative aspects of Shaka's rule. The tradition of epic poems can be found all across the African continent. Among the Soninke and Songhai people of Mali, Senegal, and Niger, there is a great epic narrative of the migration of the Soninke and the resulting fall of the Wagaudi Empire. And in the Congo, there is the Leanja epic of the Mongo Nkudo people and the Mwinda epic of the Banyanga. Once one learns how to read it, Ghana Must Go fits perfectly into this long tradition of epic poetry from the African continent. Selasi writes Ghana Must Go with a meter that is sometimes an iambic hexameter and at other times an iambic trimeter. If one reads the book with the rhythm that the meters require, it's like you're reading a very long poem. This form lends itself very nicely to some of the stylistic choices Selasi makes. Much of the novel is written using stream of consciousness. This is when a character's thoughts and conscious reactions to their external environment or internal world is written as a continuous flow. The characters are constantly being pulled into their memories by photographs, smells, how people look, and locations. The novel has a disoriented sense of time and place, always moving back and forth between the present and the past, jumping across the Atlantic between Africa, America, and Europe. Some scholars have made the argument that the novel's perceived disjointedness and incoherence reflects the uncertainty of immigrating to a different country, the same uncertainty that Kweku and Fola have to live with. It is the instability that this uncertainty breeds that ultimately destroys their family life. Selasi demonstrates this in chapter 2 of part 3, when Fola decides to go wait for her children at the airport. She pushes her way to the front of those waiting, not roughly but firmly in the Nigerian tradition, and stands. She is early, she knows, 30 minutes, but couldn't brook waiting alone in the house, with the cake on the countertop sitting there done, with the look of one waiting for something as well. Better here, closeness, the throng, human beings, aunties wailing as prodigals appear half asleep, pushing forth from the crowd to grab, hug, sob, and welcome the tearful theatrics of old women's happiness. Better here, sweating, surrounded by talking, the low steady throbbing of heartbeats in wait. Hundreds all waiting in collective anticipation for some beloved somebody's coming back home. Bodies familiar, she never told him how familiar. She's thinking, thoughts drifting as thoughts will in heat. As one waits standing still, with still time all around one, a space into which enters past seeing room. Some motion, slight movement away from the moment, and off one goes drifting from this day to that. To the airport, same airport. Be careful, this is Ghana. My friend, I'm from Lagos, and I've been here before. Why didn't she tell him? It wasn't a secret. He knew that she'd fled at the start of the war, that she somehow left Lagos to finish her studies and showed up at Lincoln in bell-bottom denim. But he never asked how she got to Pennsylvania, as if her life had begun where their shared life began. And she never proffered answers at night in the dark after he had gone diving and held to her wet. Then it seemed normal to lie there beside him, alive in the present and dead to the past, with the man in her bed, in her heart, in her body, but not in her memory, and she not in his. Fola's memories continue to jump like this between time and place in the rest of the chapter, and in the process we find out how her mother and father died in Nigeria and how she ended up immigrating to America. The meters also have the benefit of helping to paint the setting that Selasi describes. At the beginning of chapter 5 of part 3, she writes the following. They pile into Benson's SUV after breakfast, each shut in the silent glass box of his thoughts. 7 boxes locked, soundproof, shatter-resistant. The 8th man, the driver, hums present, alone. The day has dawned coolish, deceptively clement. Sun covered by clouds, a thick coat of pale grey. With bright whiteness behind it, a threat or a promise. Breeze running its fingers through leaves not yet noon. In 30 or so minutes, the clouds will start parting. The leaves will stop moving, the air will stand still. The sun will stop playing demure and come forward. The day will turn muggy, unbearably hot. The weather in December is like this in Ghana, an intaken breath held until the world spins. Trail of tears to the new year through sopping humidity, the worst of the heat, then the respite of rain. Even in the dialogue, Selasi weaves in the meters like a master. In chapter 2 of part 2, after Olu meets his girlfriend Ling's father and stands up to him in a way that his own children have never done before, Olu and Ling have the following exchange in the car. Then, laughing together, a flute and a cello, the car windows open to birds and a breeze. You were there the whole time? I was listening from the bathroom. Leanne was on speaker, I love you so much. She was crying, let's get married. Tonight, go to Vegas. Right now? It's been 14 years. Fuck it. Why not? Have we ever been to Nevada? Wait, where's the Grand Canyon? Arizona. Go to Logan, she said. And he did. One of the major themes is encapsulated in the titles of the 3 parts of the novel. Part 1 is titled Gone. Part 2 is Going. And Part 3 is Go. This is what all the characters do in some way. They leave, they go, they run away, they feel sent away and left behind. This is an idea that keeps coming up again and again. Selasi plays with the following motif quite beautifully when Fola thinks of her father, who died when she was still a child in chapter 1 of part 2. He is gone now, her father, has been gone for so long that his goneness has replaced his existence in full. Later on in chapter 4, when Sadie finds out about her own father's death, a man who abandoned his family when she was still a baby, this motif comes up again. Your father is dead, she says, waiting for, willing. The sadness, still nothing, she closes her eyes. She wants to feel something, some normal reaction, some sign that it matters that someone is gone. Never mind it's her father, now gone for so long that his goneness replaced his existence in full. Ghana Must Go is by no means an easy book to read. It demands one's full attention and that one learns how to read it. The disjointedness and incoherence is part of a poetic form that Selasi purposefully decided to use to tell the story. In the process, she has given us a truly remarkable book. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you've read Ghana Must Go, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed or didn't enjoy reading it as much as I did. I learned so much about so many epic poems from around the world when I was doing research for this video. Unfortunately, I couldn't include all of that here, but I will be making a separate companion video to this one on epic poetry with a focus on epic poems from Africa. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share. I'll see you next time.